Good people, welcome to Reflection in Action. My name is Todd Pittman, and I'm the Director of Community Impact here at Resilia. I joined Resilia about 10 months ago after more than 25 years in the philanthropic sector. And for those of you that are new to the Resilia space, I got to put you in the know. You see, although we are a tech company that has the most sought after platform nonprofits are looking for across the country, it's really our human touch and our passion for meeting nonprofit change makers where they are that really sets us apart. We know that you could be anywhere this morning, so we are so glad you decided to spend this morning with us. Juneteenth means more than just most of us being able to have the day off yesterday. And over the next hour, I'm going to have an in-depth conversation with three of the most dynamic nonprofit professionals about what Juneteenth means to their organizations and the communities they serve, and what the philanthropic sector can really do to support the work of Blacks-led and serving nonprofits. So, good people, why are we here? There are many folk that feel there has been little to no change to combat racial inequities caused by institutional and systematic racism, and some feel that philanthropic efforts have done more harm than good. Now, to support the feeling of some, we need to go back. We need to go back a couple of years to an article that I read, which was in the Smithsonian magazine, titled "The Storied History of Giving in America." And in this article, when it comes to our Black communities and to the nonprofits that serve them, it was shared that more philanthropic initiatives are based on what philanthropy feels should be for our community, instead of seeking input from the Black community and meeting the community where they are to support initiatives that our Black community knows should be done. And over my career as a nonprofit founder, as an executive director, as a government and philanthropic grant maker, and even my experience in leading corporate giving programs, I found that many have encountered, that I've come across, feel that too often funders have made the decision about what causes in the Black community are most important to support without input from those closest to the ground, those closest to the pain of the community, and those Black-led and social change organizations that actually serve those communities. Now, let me take a minute here and share with y'all how we at Resilia view Black-led and social change organizations. You see, just because an organization has a Black person as the ED or the CEO, that does not make them Black-led. We consider an organization to be Black-led if, number one, in addition to their executive staff, their boards are also predominantly Black. And number two, when it comes to Black-led social change organizations, they have a stated purpose to increase the power dynamics of the Black community. So, without further ado, folks, let's meet these three panelists. First, coming to us via way of Houston, Texas, I'm pleased to introduce to you Lisa Jedkins. Now, Miss Lisa is the founder of Why Not Legacy and Heritage. Now, when it comes to connecting families to their past, present, and future, Why Not Legacy and Heritage is instrumental in providing opportunities to really empower Black families to understand their past ancestral heritage and be more culturally competent and bring cultural awareness about their ancestors. And a big part of the organization's work is to bring awareness to historic cemeteries as part of cultural knowledge building. And Lisa has more than 20 years of experience in multiple cemetery restoration projects in the Houston area. Lisa, you are an important part of telling the story of our ancestors to folks all over the Houston area, and we are grateful to have you share your experience with us today. Next up, also out of the Houston, Texas area, we have the co-founder and executive director of Why Not Legacy and Heritage, Miss Zanitri Wells. Now, when I was learning more about Zanitra, I was happy to see that she is a true believer in the Ghanaian word Sankofa. which literally means to retrieve, and to go back and to get. San meaning to return, ko meaning to go, and fa meaning seek. So, Sinitri, you have ties. You tie this to your work at Why Not Legacy Heritage. You tie it to your work. What I found by sharing the belief that we must know where we are and where we came from to know where we're going. Now that's powerful. You're a genealogist. You're busy teaching our youth and families to use technology to research their family history. And I watched a video of you searching for your ancestor from the slave trade. I believe it was at a cemetery in Pleasure, Texas. And the joy in your voice when you found your ancestor, I believe it was Omar Ambary, was unspeakable. I cannot wait to hear what you have to share with us today. And last but not least, we have with us today Miss Tatiana Wilson, also from Houston, Texas. It is truly a Houston party here today. Joining us on behalf of the Urban Community Network. Now, founded on the African proverb belief that it takes a village to raise a child, the Urban Community Network is busy empowering communities to take back responsibility and the supervision of our youth, and providing a strong support network for community members. And Tatiana is deep in community engagement. She's got leadership roles in the likes of the NAACP, and she's a Delta. And most notable, Tatiana is dedicated to working with at-risk youth in the Houston area. Tatiana, I want to lift up to everyone an important belief of the Urban Community Network. And that belief is to strengthen indigenous support systems in neighborhoods where you live is key to empowering communities to take back responsibility. That's a powerful statement, and we're excited to have you with us today. All right, y'all, let's get into the dialogue. In so many ways, Juneteenth represents how freedom and justice in America has always been on a delay system for Black folks. Think about decades after the end of the war, we saw a wave of lynching, we saw a cycle of imprisonment, and the root taking place with Jim Crow laws. And then I think what followed was the disproportionate impact of mass incarceration, discriminatory housing policies, and a serious lack of economic investment. And so, given all this, it is clear that while some progress has been made in Black America's 150 years out of bondage, considerable barriers continue to impede progress. Now, knowing all this, I want to ask each of you to share with us, what is the importance of recognizing Juneteenth to you? Let's start with Lisa. Lisa, please share with us, what is the importance of recognizing Juneteenth to you?
Well, the importance to me is um, my family has always recognized Juneteenth because I am a Texan, and it means freedom to my family. That's one thing that we recognize, because the freedom is after 2 years, we were informed that we were free, but we were still on the sharecroppers. We were still part of slavery. And it took a long journey for us to leave that path, to leave and move further. And also community. Juneteenth to me is community. It brings the community together to show their stories, show about their loved ones. And it also means to me, it's talking about how we are living today compared to back then. Juneteenth is a family community, a place where family can enjoy one another, come back. Because during slavery, we were separated as family. So my family has always celebrated Juneteenth because it brings us together as one, where we can share stories and continue to live the legacies and know where anything about our family. So that's what Juneteenth is: love and support of the family.
I'll tell you, that is, that's really putting a cycle together. Family, community, just that to get togetherness that we lacked, that we have and we can own now, and we can bring that together. Lisa, that's powerful. Thank you so much. Zanitra, I'd love to hear from you. Please tell us, what is the importance of recognizing Juneteenth to you?
Juneteenth is very important to African Americans and to me as a whole because it's a day to beginning to recognize our journey to freedom. It is especially important to me because I'm a fifth generation Texan and my ancestors were enslaved on this land in Texas. So they were a part of those individuals who were late to find out about the ending of slavery and also endured the generations of slavery that we have here, that we had here. Um, it's a day of liberation where my family could come together and remember that we are family and what we've overcome and the journey to where we're going.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
what
Journey
Juneteenth
to
is.
freedom. And I want to go back. If anyone gets the chance out there, please visit their website and just take a look at that video. Can you just, Zanitra, can you just share a little bit more when you were filming that video, when you came across that tombstone? Can you just share with us a little bit of that joy? It was I kind of felt kind of a joy and a pain at the same time. Can you sort of share that feeling with us and sort of maybe give some background on how you came across that?
Okay, so how I went on that journey to find my ancestors. So, as a child, I was always told that some generations back, I had a grandfather from Africa and a grandmother from Ethiopia. So, I've always asked questions. But now, since I've started doing my own research, I was able to research and find out where their ancestor was buried. So, I just took a chance in the dark. I was like, come on, mom, let's go out here and go try to find this ancestor's grave, which is, he died in 1894, which is a long time ago. So, it was just like a one in a million chance to be able to find his grave with the tombstone still there showing where he was buried. So, I went to this place and we weren't able to find it because he's still buried in the middle of a cotton field. So a lot of our ancestors that were buried back then, I mean, like they were buried on certain people's land and stuff. So we don't know exactly where they are or anything like that. So it was just great for me to find him. And then when I was walking around the cemetery, I barely seen any headstones, anything. I was like, okay, God, please let me find him. So I told him I was talking to the ancestor as he was here when I was driving down there. I was like, I'm looking for you. You have family that still remembers you. So I want to find you. And then when I was led to that grave, it was like an overcoming joy of finding my African ancestor who was brought over here during slavery. Like I actually could walk to the area where he was buried at. So it was, many people aren't able to research our history back that far, because we're lost in the history books and the way information was documented back then, a lot of that information was lost. So for me to be able to walk on the grounds, and I'm pretty sure he was in that area, he lived in that area, and did things there, to just be in the area where that ancestor was
I
just pure
really enjoyed it, and thanks
greatness.
for sharing that, and thanks for filming that experience. It was truly remarkable. And I should point out here, we've got a mother-daughter duo here. So Miss Lisa and Zanitra are mother-daughter. I can't figure out which one's a mother, which one's a daughter, but they are a team. So that is great. We're so glad to have you both with us. And Tatiana, let's hear from you. What is the importance of recognizing Juneteenth to you?
So just to piggyback off of both Miss Lisa and Zenitra, it is about togetherness. It is about remembrance for our ancestors. I have family that lived in Galveston, so I was around Gonzales County growing up. I have friends that were Little Miss Juneteenth in the parades. growing up as well. So it's always a day just to commemorate our journey. And as I've gotten older, I also have taken this day as a to pay homage to our ancestors by resting because they didn't get the chance to. So yesterday I just connected with God. I rested and I actually thanked my ancestors for the work that they did to even get us here to where we are today. So that is what
Oh,
Juneteenth
that is
means to me.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I appreciate it. You know, I mentioned earlier that some progress, has been made, but when it comes to equality and equity, as blacks in America, we've got a long way to go. Yes, we've come a long way in working towards equity in the workplace, but hey, we still have a long way to go toward full equality. And yes, we've come a long way in recognizing the work and the contributions of Black Americans, but we still have a long way to go toward full equality. Now, I want to point out it's not just Todd Pittman here saying that we have a long way to go. We can find this in the figures like the Black wealth gap or the high unemployment rates for Black Americans, even before the pandemic. And we cannot forget something close to me, and that's the low representation of Black men in philanthropy. So I'm curious to hear from each of you with all of this. How do we balance the importance of celebrating and honoring national moments like Black History Month and like Juneteenth, given the realities of, hey, we still have a long way to go? And this time, let's start with Zenitra. Tell us, how do we balance the importance of celebrating and honoring national moments like Black History Month and Juneteenth?
Okay, we should celebrate these moments, but never forget how far we came or how far we still have to go. Because as the generations pass, some of our important history is lost, and that isn't good because we don't want to have a repeat of the past. So that's a whole thing with the Sankofa. If you don't, if you know where you came from, and then you can know where you're going as well. So that's how I Juneteenth and Black History Month with the realities of where we go, because we still have a long way to go, because history in itself, a lot of being retracted, a lot of things that our ancestors fought for and everything, or being retracted, and we have forgotten where we came from. So I feel like as African Americans, a lot of us have gotten too comfortable within the state that we're in, not continuing the progress that we needed to do to stay in the order that we needed to go on this freedom journey.
That's something key there. Gotten too comfortable. We've all got to keep moving. We all have to stay in the game, and I appreciate you lifting that up and reminding us, including myself, not to get too comfortable. We got to get up. We got to do the work. Miss Tatiana, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me a little bit more. How do we balance the importance of celebrating and honoring, national moments that we have like Black History Month and also Juneteenth?
I think that the balance is delicate. However, it's not impossible. I do think that we need to celebrate, but also make the education of why we're celebrating very relatable and inclusive. A lot of times, especially when it comes down to social media, they kind of just put us in a cute little caption, but that's not what we need to educate our people, our communities. So a lot of the times, we need to just bridge that gap. And how do we do that? We, have restorative justice circles. We actually connect with our communities. We train up a child in the way they should go. It starts with our youth and young adults. So I do think that with just celebrating with a purpose and also educating with a purpose, that will help us just really kind of bring back the significance on why we are celebrating these things. People sometimes are just happy to have a federal holiday, but there's actually, blood, sweat, tears, grief, pain, that, our ancestors had to actually endure for us to even get to this point. So I do think that it's very important that we actually bridge that gap and actually let our communities know that there's significance behind the celebration.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. You said delicate but not impossible, and then you use the word inclusive. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what do you mean by inclusive? What is inclusiveness to you in this process?
So inclusiveness to me would basically mean that we kind of frame the ideas and frame the education to where if a fifth grader to a college educated person can understand it. A lot of times we can get lost in that jargon and we can get intimidated by, just not understanding. But I want to let's bring it down a few notches and make it plain for everyone to understand. Because a lot of the times, words do mean things, but sometimes we don't understand them.
Yeah.
And that can just come from, the way we communicate, the way we especially, we have the African American vernacular English. People don't really understand
Yep.
us a lot of times. So if we could just make it as simple and transparent as possible, I think that we can include a lot of people and we don't miss it.
Great. So inclusiveness in the messaging, make it understandable to all, relatable to all. That's fantastic. Miss Lisa, tell me a little bit. How do we balance the importance of celebrating and honoring national moments like Black History Month and Juneteenth?
Well, I'm a little bit older than they are, so I go back, and to me, say balance. There's no balance because Black history is every day. We should celebrate Black history every day. How can we just put Black history into 1 month? How can we just say Juneteenth? We celebrate Juneteenth because it's our freedom, it's our emancipation. Juneteenth. That's why we celebrate that. But we go to Black history. I say every day is because our youth need to know about their history. We need to continue telling the stories to our youth so they won't make the mistakes that some of our forefathers made. We need to make sure that they are balanced by just being able to get them. If you tell a story, they will understand. They will feel better about themselves. They will be able to move forward. So to me, you can't put Black history into 1 month. Juneteenth will be
Mhm.
celebrated all the time. And we have to tell them about the civil rights movement. There are laws being passed right today where they're trying to retract civil rights, and a lot of the
Yeah.
youth don't know and
Yeah.
they're confused and they're mad, but don't get mad. Come together. Come together like the people did in the 60s. They need to come together to know why they're fighting. Why are you angry? And I like what you're doing, Tatiana, because we need to, our youth are in trouble. They're confused, they're unhappy because we don't know where we've been. So how do we know where we're going? You celebrate Jewish holiday, you celebrate other holidays, but you haven't celebrated the tragedy in Black America where we went through slavery. We should continue telling the story. They talk about telling the story in the schools. Well, we go back to the church and tell the story. We go back into the homes and tell the story. Listen to your grandparents, and they'll tell you the story of what their parents went through. Go back and, because that's why I do cemeteries and Black history through the ways of telling the story of our ancestors, telling the story of their accomplishments, how they were doctors, lawyers, teachers in a time when we could not be anything, in a time when we were hung because we knew too much. So we need to
Hmm.
come together as a family. So where's balance? There's no balance to me. That's my opinion. And all of this is, I hear people every time talking on television and talking about Black History Month. We have to balance back into our community. We have to take it one day at a time. We have to take one person at a time, one child at a time, and let them know you are somebody. You can be somebody. In 18 in the 1900s, we had a Black man at this Evergreen Negro Cemetery in Houston who owned property. who was able to purchase a cemetery. He was a slave, you know. So if you know that these happened then, you know that they can happen now. You know, we were confused. They say, oh, go to college and get a degree. Well, everybody's not ready for a degree. Everybody can't go to college. So each one take one, grab one, teach one, and move forward. That's where I feel about it. I get excited.
All right. Each one, take one, grab one. I hear you. And you know, one thing I'm hearing in all three of you is the commonality. It's a commonality of consistent and effective messaging, effective storytelling, and both of those to really remind us that each one of us cannot get comfortable. All of it ties together. I love this messaging. And you know, before we get into our next question, I want to bring it to the front, something I'm sure is no surprise to anyone here today, and that is that, you know, funding for Black nonprofit leaders historically lags behind those organizations with white leaders by about 24%. And that's according to the racial inequities in philanthropic funding report by Echo and Green and Bridgespan. Look, no doubt, many Black community and nonprofit leaders face some serious roadblocks when it comes to funding. And you know, hear me out. I'm not talking about just support for well-needed programmatic work in the community. I'm talking about the capital that's needed for Black-led organizations to really sustain and scale up their work in Black communities. Look, our Black nonprofit leaders are the ones who are closest to the pain. Our Black nonprofit leaders are the ones who have a real finger on the pulse of our Black communities. And with that, I want to start and shift this over to Tatiana. And Tatiana, I want to ask you, as a Black leader in the nonprofit sector, and as a woman who drives the movements, how do you feel we are doing in our country when it comes to advancing racial equity and justice in our communities? And we're going to start with Tatiana, and then we'll hear from Lisa, followed by Zanitra. So, Tatiana.
So, when it comes to racial equity, there's a very, very long way that we have to go, especially when it comes down to even understanding microaggressions, understanding intersectionality, understanding, especially when it comes to, you know, people of color, especially African American women and men, we are at a disadvantage, and that is not something that we are saying to complain, but it's the facts. So I do believe that when it comes to just advancing racial equity, we need to have more trainings, more diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need definitely to bridge that gap and open up that space for leaders like myself, leaders like Lisa and Zanitra, to hold those spaces in those public and private sectors, because no one can speak to our experience but us. And so when we kind of bridge that gap, I think that that would, you know, really assist all of our movements in moving forward. And also, a lot of the times, everything is kind of systematic. We need a more holistic approach to really tackling racial inequity. And with that, that kind of helps the whole healing process. That helps us advance, you know, with social action and systematic changes. Um, and, you know, our experiences are different for a reason. So that is, you know, so the lack of understanding is, it's not a dig, but it's an opportunity to bring understanding. And a lot of times when you look at it objectively, a lot of our experiences fall together to fall in place. So I do think that if we are able to hold those spaces and actually articulate our experiences, we can definitely do.
Yeah, you said something that supports my belief that you know, in philanthropy we need to involve our Black leaders early on. And you said no one can speak to our experience but us, or better than us, and that is so true. Miss Lisa, I want to go to you. How do you feel we are doing in our country when it comes to advancing racial equity and justice in our communities?
Oh, I had a lot to say, but I'm gonna go back because I like what she said. And we're being pushed backwards. We're at a standstill. We're not, because we're not knowing or following and not wanting to be involved, because we feel that if we get involved, we have no power. But that is not true. So is I say I've become passionate about that because I see the change. I see when I was young, we didn't see that much. I was after the 60s, the civil rights movement, right after that, or during that time. And they made a big footprint into racial
Yeah,
equality. So we became confused at that time because we didn't understand. We thought we made it, to me. We thought we made it. We thought we can just be anybody, go to school and make the same money. I was a computer programmer and I thought I was on top of the world making a lot of money. But when I asked my counterpart, who was a white male, how much you made, he made double of what I made. So I
yeah,
feel like we need to go back and teach our youth the basics, not only to get a degree, not only to go to college, but to learn what's lacking them. Learn carpentry, learn how to be a plumber, a welder. Go back, because now those are the highest paying jobs. And they say people
yeah,
don't want to work because you took the skills out of the schools. So we're talking about racial equality. It's not here yet.
yeah. Thank
We just
you.
have to keep moving forward.
No,
It's
thank
not here
you.
yet.
Yes, 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 yes. Zanitra, what about you? Please share with us. Please share with us your feelings.
My feelings is the disparity in our communities is still evident. I mean, like we thought that we were advancing and racial equity was moving in the right direction, but as we see now in 2023, really not much has changed because when you go back and look at the things from the past and you see how similar it is now, maybe it's a little bit more hidden, but it's still there. So the racial equity that we have and everything like that and the justice in the Black communities isn't the way that it needs to be. Right now, a lot of the Black communities are going through gentrification. So that connection that we have with each other in these communities, going to the same churches, going to the same schools, people in the neighborhoods knowing each other, being able to work with one another and things like that. We are so divided now that it created a whole nother issue that we still have to work with. So now the justice for communities, that's why it's lacking. I mean, it's just the separation and it's the non-understanding and not coming together and trying to understand. Like this talk that we're having right now is the type of talks that we need to have in order to help us advance so others can recognize us and others can understand us, having that type of open
Absolutely
dialogue.
fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. The work that the three of you are doing and the work of more than probably 1.3 million nonprofits across this country doing is really what this country is all about. I mean, it's folks like you that really drive Resilia to do what we do. It is the communities that you serve that drive the foundations that are joining us today to do what they do. And it's the dedication of the folks like you, feeding the hungry, healing the sick, sheltering the homeless, and providing that needed inspiration to the discouraged that plays a fundamental role in creating a more equitable and thriving America. I want to ask you, and I want to start this time with Lisa. Lisa, how does commemorating and educating others about Juneteenth impact your work and the communities that you serve so faithfully? How does honoring and educating others about this day of independence impact your work in the community? I'm going to start with Lisa, and then we'll move to Zanika.
Well, with my work, we tell the struggle. Juneteenth was it just brings us back to the struggle of the people who came before us. So when we talk about this and working and educating, I think that we need to educate our youth. It's important to educate them. It's important to educate them on, and we keep going back to the past because the past is needed to be known, and the present is where we stand right now, and the future is where we're going. And they say don't look backwards or you'll turn into a pillar of salt. No, we have to, because we, like I say, the reason we uses Juneteenth to educate, and I say Black history is every day in my family. The reason we use Juneteenth to educate, I tell the youth, keep on moving forward. Recognize the struggle, because the struggle is not over. And the struggle is the different type of struggle now. It's more of an economic struggle than it was back then. I mean, it's always been. So I feel that Juneteenth and the communities we serve, the more we get into our Black communities, the more we bring families together, the more we tell about the history, the more we tell about what's happening today, and let the youth that's such at-risk youth that she's working with, that I'm excited to be a part of, to go, so I feel that we need to just incorporate Juneteenth into every day. And I'm excited they made it a national holiday. But other cities besides Texas that grew up in Texas, and we migrated to California. So those people from Texas and California, they understand it. But when I talk to other people, they say, oh, well, why are you so happy that you were free? Why are you happy?
Yep.
But I said, it's just like the happiness of 4th of July, Independence Day. That wasn't Independence Day for my family. Juneteenth independence for my family. And I get excited. Because I'm excited of how excited the youth are when we tell the history, when I bring them out there and show them and they do the research. I get excited because they're excited, and some of them feel better and they come back and say, oh, I feel better. I am going to try. I am not going to give up. And that's the importance. Don't give up. We'll beat down, fall down all the time. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. And that's what our organization is. That's why I'm saying, why not legacy and heritage? You tell me why. You're changing everything, but why not? Okay, that's it.
No, Ms. Lisa, I'm telling you, I get excited every time you drop something. So thank you so much, because you are truly a reminder and keep folks on their toes to not get comfortable. So I thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead. Zanitra might be having some difficulty. Are you with us, Zanitra? Is everything working okay?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm having some connectivity issues in the middle, but
well, let me
here.
While I have you, let me capture you while you were here, because I love to hear what you have to say. And what I'm interested in hearing from you is, how does honoring and educating others about this Day of Independence impact your work in the community that you do with your mother and with others in the community?
Yes, it is important for me to give others information in regards to Juneteenth, because like I said before, I am a 5th generation Texan. So this holiday means a lot to me, and to educate the individuals in my neighborhood about the history of Juneteenth, because even though some individuals are here, they're still not familiar with Juneteenth, and in regards to how it was with slavery towards us, and the type of work that we do with the the preserving of historical cemeteries has a lot to do with the ancestors who were here before. A lot of them were enslaved as well. So telling the history about those ancestors who were here before, and giving that people that information so they could feel empowered that they can do what they want to do, because these people were doing things that we're still trying to do today, not too far out of slavery, stating that at the time during slavery, we couldn't read, we couldn't write. We were treated as like 3/5 of a person, like, you know, so for us to come out and start owning land and becoming doctors, becoming teachers, and just doing that type of work, because that was also philanthropic work when they were getting together as organizations and buying land together and building communities and starting towns and starting other types of organizations. We've been doing this for a long time without getting the assistance that we needed, but now is the time. I feel like now is the time.
Now is the time. Now is the time. Absolutely. And Ms. Tatiana, I'd love to hear from you about how does honoring and educating others about this Day of Independence really impact the work that you're doing in the community?
Definitely. So firstly, with just educating people about the significance of Juneteenth will assist them in making a conscious decision and effort when it comes to engaging with the impact that we're doing in our communities. As Anitra said before, with the erasure of our village, a lot of the times we don't have those places to educate our youth and young adults. When it comes to our history, when it comes to advocating for ourselves. So I do think that with honoring events like this, it opens up a pathway for us to educate, for us to actually engage with one another and kind of bring that sense of community back to our roots and really connect. Um, there's also something else I wanted to say. So, with the conscious and educated decision, in reference to engaging with the impact, people can actually know what they're standing for. A lot of times when we, you know, we celebrate things because our parents did or their parents did. But what is the actual significance of it? So I do think with educating people on the significance and importance of Juneteenth, that will help them make a conscious decision, actually know what they're standing for.
Wow, this is just, I mean, the perspectives here, and you know, I go back to that Ghanaian term, Sankofa. You know, it's you gotta know where you're coming from to know where you're going. So I appreciate everything. So Zanitra, Tatiana, Lisa, you know, we have a captive audience here today. We have funders who are dedicated to supporting and who are dedicated to uplifting the work of Black organizations and communities all across this country. And I applaud the work of our foundation partners and those who we haven't had the opportunity to work with yet, who are persistent in addressing the inequities we face in health, the inequities in wealth, the inequities we face in social welfare. And I applaud those funders who show up and really show out their support for Black-led and serving organizations. And I want to ask this final question from me, and then we will see if there are any questions for our panelists in the chat. But in the meantime, I want to start with Zanitra, and then we'll go to Tatiana. So Zanitra, please speak with our audience. Share with them how they, as funders, can help support and raise awareness to your efforts in serving our Black communities.
Okay, with the funders can assist with the long-term funding of the goal. We need more than just a quick fix. Long-term assistance is needed to be able to have these viable organizations. One of the plans that I found significant in my research was it was called the Gibbs Method by Mal Warwick. He stated that growth, involvement, visibility, efficiency, and stability is the ways that these funders could assist us with so that we can have these viable organizations. Because in order for us to do the work that we do, we need this type of funding. This is so important when it comes to Black organizations, because with the above method, we are able to serve our communities and make the power moves to empower African Americans across America. So in order to do this, we're able to make those power moves. And we need this type of funding because as for us doing this cultural preservation work, it takes a lot of hard work, and we spend a lot of time and a lot of hours, and we do a lot of stuff pro bono just because of the passion that we have for this, for change, because we feel like that what we put out there will come back to us. So we are empowering others so that our youth can be empowered and our legacy could still be empowered for generations to come.
Generations to come, that's critical. Tatiana, what about you?
Yes. So firstly, Zanitra, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Sponsor the work, but like the work doesn't stop. So that's why we need, a continuation of sponsorship. But I also think that a lot of times, funders can forget the connection. And I do think that, in order to get into the forefront of the experience the projects of the work, you need to build a connection and build a rapport with the community that you're serving. A lot of times that is essential in building the capacity of the community, because if you are able to actually look at what we are trying to work for objectively, you can give us a perspective that can assist us in doing the work. And also, what I've noticed is when it comes to a connection, it's okay to draw from your personal experiences. That will help you connect better to the work, but don't let that be the only guiding principle when it comes to actually. I do believe that we are not looking for a check. We're actually here to really work in our communities and build a change. So I do think that longevity is something that we need to all look forward to when it comes to getting
Thank
sponsorship.
you so much. Thank you so much. And Miss Lisa, this is the last question, and I strategically am having you go last because I'm excited to hear you speak to our wonderful funding community and just share with them, ways and your ideas on how they can help support and raise awareness to your efforts to serve our Black communities.
It's hard to come behind these two wonderful young ladies that are doing so much in the community. I like to applaud them again, Tatiana, what you're doing in the community. But as what we need is longevity, but we need also we need funding. We need support and getting the word out to help with. A lot of us, when we start these organizations, we start out our own pockets, and they say, "How long you been doing this?" I've been doing this for a long time. And do you have millions of dollars? No, millions of dollars come out of my pocket. Not millions, but whatever I have to move forward, that's what we use. And that's what most nonprofits do, African American nonprofits. They are so empowered, they want the work done is if they have a funder and if they don't have a funder, but we need it for longevity, as we said. We need general funding to help sustain our nonprofit for the day-to-day operations. And we need funding because our goals is to help those people get employed, to employ them. So by we need to employ them, yeah, to be able to keep them employed, teach them how to be employed, teach them how to work in the community, teach them how to give back. So we need funding for all the things these young ladies said. So, and we need to get the word out that this is what's going on in Texas, because we have a Texas community right here. Texas young people who are doing things, and there are several nonprofits in the Houston area that are doing things. So I am excited. Go ahead, Tatiana.
So actually wanted to just piggyback off of you, Ms. Lisa. So a lot of times with the Black community, we have the passion and the purpose, but we don't actually necessarily have the process. And I think that funders can really assist us in really fine tuning our process and our approach. So when we do go out and make those appeals to different funders, we actually can get a better response. A lot of times we know we do the work, we know we have the passion, but we may not have the wordsmithing needed for a proposal. So there needs to be more so of a collaboration on that level to ensure that we can make appeals to different funders and actually get the funding. We're not looking for handouts, but we need that molding to assist us in getting that funding, because we have to sustain for years and years to come. We don't want to have organizations that thrive for their first 3 to 5 years and then they can't anymore because there isn't any growth. So I do think that that is something that we definitely.
Oh, thank you. We definitely don't want to have passion without process. So I appreciate you lifting that up. This has been such an experience for me. The work of each of you is remarkable and invaluable as we move closer to equality. And I want to thank each of you for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. Bren, for anyone who would like to follow up on today's discussion, if you can drop my contact information in the chat, that will be great. And we're going to give folks a little bit of time back. I want to say, though, before we close, it's been 2 years now since Juneteenth has been declared a federal holiday. Yesterday was recognition of that day back in 1865, when enslaved African Americans in Texas learned that they were free. And today, about half the states in our country have not made Juneteenth an official state holiday, and that validates we still have a long way to go. And I hope that our panelists today have encouraged those in the philanthropic community to increase our support as we witness rising inequality, and let us continue to come together as a Tech for Good company. Let us continue to come together, those of us who are part of the funding community, and let us continue to come together, those of us who are grassroots nonprofit leaders. Let us all come together as one to really help as we witness a decrease in inequality, as we see an increase in philanthropy. I want to thank you all for joining us. And on behalf of Resilia, have a wonderful and productive day. We're out. Take care, and we'll see you next time.